first time. Kyle won a Primetime Emmy Award for his portrayal as head coach Eric Taylor in one of the best television series ever made called Friday Night Lights. And has been on several other series and King Kong movies and Bloodline and Argo and Zero Dark 30 and some of the great, absolutely. And Kyle was in a movie called Catch-22 with George Clooney. That was a really interesting and enjoyable ride based on Catch-22, which is the modern version of it. And Kyle is making his first trip to Normandy and has been very active in our foundation and very interested in World War II for a long time. So why is it important, Kyle?
Well, geez, first of all, you make me sound pretty good there.
It's on the back of this.
No, when you first asked the question, 3 words came to my mind: is lest we forget. And it's not just this is my first time here, and it's been an incredible experience. It's kind of hard to describe. But the young men who are involved in this, who are sitting here, the 3 of them, I think what's really important is that the sacrifice that they gave was part of their youth as well. It was part of their life. And I've met other veterans who, these young guys, they give part of their life that I can't explain because I'm not military and I haven't been there, but they give something of themselves that they can't get back. Things change. It's an altered bit of their soul, and that is true sacrifice. And it's kind of hard to explain, but if we don't remember and we don't do our little part to try to express that as actors or educators teaching or leaders insisting that this be remembered in all the places around the world, then it will happen again. And so that sacrifice, I think, is what cannot be left behind, because little guys need to know that they need to give a sacrifice, whether it's a small little child doing what he has to do, or when he becomes a man, that's what you do. You have to expect to give sacrifice of some sort. And this is the greatest, I think you could agree, one of the greatest sacrifices you could give, and it's for us and our freedom. So I think that's why it's important to me.
Thank you, Kyle. Peter Youngblood Hills played Shifty Powers in Band of Brothers.
Tim, could you ask that question again, please?
Why is it important that we preserve these stories for future generations of the men who are sitting in our panel here tonight?
Well, I think it's a lot to do with, interesting enough, memory. What do we remember? I think that truth is something that can be. We can go on all night with this, but truth is something. Sorry. Here I am. Hello. So truth is something that we want to carry on the integrity of the story, because sometimes you can get lost in the world when we don't really understand where we've come from. And I think that the value of basically understanding the great story that we've been a part of helps to steer us in the right direction. And obviously, when these veterans, when there's no one to tell that story, it's going to be very hard to, what actually happened, or were you there, or how do you really connect with it? Do we create more wars so that we can create more meaning? I don't know. This is I hope that we could build in a movement to reclaim, our relationship with what's happened, and feel proud about it, and feel like that we're actually part of something really important. So, thank you.
Thank you, Peter. John Seward was on the USS Satterley on D-Day. The Satterley was off of Point to Hawk. So one of the reasons the 2nd Rangers were able to get up the cliffs at Point to Hawk and stay at the top of the cliffs was because of what the USS Satterley was doing, which were shelling the Germans and keeping them away from the edge of the cliff, and then supporting the Rangers when they got to the top of the cliff. So talk about having a front row view to the 2nd Rangers climbing Point de Hawk and establishing a foothold at the top of Point de Hawk. John witnessed that. So why is it important, John, for us to continue to preserve the stories of what you were able to accomplish on that day of days?
Well, thank you, and if you can't hear me, I apologize, because I do talk a little slower than most of the younger folks today. But I was still working in a grocery meat market, and not the surprise of my life when I was not at that time involved at all politically. But when Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, I didn't think it was the end of the world. I had a feeling that this is not the right thing for anybody to do, and therefore I wasn't even 18 at the time, but by the time I was 18, I had built up a desire to defend my country. And it's something that's difficult within a period of 30 years. That attitude in our country has changed in a lot of the minds of the younger people. And that's one of the reasons why I continue to talk to schools, to student groups, and will continue as long as I can. But I hope I have made some type of a understanding in the minds of those that I've talked to.
Craig Heaney played Roy Cobb in Band of Brothers. You looking at me, college boy? Anyway, you have to inside Band of Brothers too. But this is Craig's first time to Normandy as well. So taking everything in that you've been able to take in over the past few days, does that reinforce your belief that people need to remember what happened here, and the younger generation needs to know about moments like D-Day and other moments that saved the world?
First of all, I apologise for my accent. I'll have to get used to it. We were kids when we got this job. I really wasn't, to be honest, aware of the importance of it, which is probably something you wouldn't expect to hear. I didn't realise what a privilege it was going to be to be involved in it, and how well it would be received. Of course it's important. That's why you're all here, because it's important to you. You can't follow what's factual. You know, if you'd seen us all, I'm sure the lads won't mind me saying, we didn't have a clue what we were doing when we were at boot camp. We wouldn't have lasted 2 minutes in the real world. But it's very important to keep remembering the real world and what happened. And as we've said, could happen again, hopefully won't. But of course it's important. I don't have to tell you that, you already know. but I think that I was ignorant when I started doing the job. I learned more from doing the job. And the most important thing that I remember from the whole experience was Bill Garnier, the actual veteran, came on set to see us all, and he was standing with a stick and his leg was gone, and he wasn't the tallest of men. And have you ever met someone that you think, I would not mess with him? I was, well, we're not worthy. We did our best to portray what we were asked to do. But we're not worthy, to be honest. But I'm glad that it's still alive.
Thank you. Carry on his legacy and as an actor, in your own words.
Thanks, Tim. I am quite literally in this room because of Danny Alday. There's absolutely no way that I would be here other than his sacrifice, because he didn't come home. He gave up his tomorrow for my today, as all those who didn't come home. So I try and make my today as best as possible for many, many reasons, but particularly for that. Both my grandfathers served. They came home. My mom's father was in the Navy. He captained 9 different ships in the Atlantic. He sunk 2 U-boats. He got to come home. So I think for all of us to remember is just to make today your best day.
Thank you, Scott. Tim Matthews played Alex Pencala in Band of Brothers. Tim?
I'm fairly confident anyone here would want to ensure we don't have a repeat of World War II, and if we can have any small role in that by passing on these stories and humanising them rather than making them something that's just a kind of timeline in history that we look back on, and one of the sort of shifting events that we look at in abstraction. I think we'd all want to do that. I mean, I certainly hope that's the aim in remembering it all. But I think personally, it can only be a small role, but I'm happy to try and do my part. So.
Thank you. George Mertz Jr. is a D-Day veteran. Why is it important, since I'm talking to you as a person who actually witnessed this through your eyes, why is it important that you are here in Normandy to continue to talk about something that happened 78 years ago?
Well, my D-Day operation came in 7 days after D-Day. I mean, I'm not claiming to be a D-Day
That old Normandy veteran.
However, it came in after. And our job as military police was to keep and make sure the traffic got to where it was supposed to be, and especially the units that got here dropped in the wrong zones. We picked them up, got them back to their unit, and I would consider that we were more like the GPS of today. I mean, it's a funny thing to say, but I wanted to mention something you said about, and someone said about not letting the people know when you got home about things you did. One of the things about that is they, what do they call it? Scratch stuff out that you write on your paper, and they'd just cancel stuff out that you might have wrote about. So there again, it was not necessarily that you didn't want to tell about it or talk about it. It would be that somebody else said that you can't say this.
You were censored.
Yeah, censored. That's what I was trying to get the word.
I'm married. I know what it's like to be censored.
Well, I know that. Right. Well, I've been married, and I had 7 children, so I know what it's like to be censored, yes. And that was one of the things that, well, actually, when I was at the Battle of here, we were the First Army. General, not Hodge, General Omar Bradley, the First Army. When we got here, we were charged with getting the Third Army off of the boats in here. And then we found a bivouac area in a field like a hedgerow field, and it was mined, and we had to kind of make sure that it was swept from the mines. And I think General Patton had some equipment on his tanks that he could go through and do that pretty well. But anyway, it was Saints of Our Lady Comte was one of the fields that he bivouacked in when we brought him to shore. And then after that, we went on down into Avranches, Coutons, and then down into the Brittany, and then Brest. And there was a sub-pen down there that was really a threat to our possibility of going on across France. So we were down there to take them out. We took a lot of prisoners down there, and they finally destroyed the sub-pens because it was able to drop a big enough bomb on it to break it open, like cracking a nutshell. But they got it into it, and they were able to take all that down. So that was one of the main things, but I also went up to Bastogne, Belgium, and I was on the main intersection there, right across from where the Band of Brothers were. We got them there on the back of trucks. They didn't fly in on airplanes because they couldn't fly at that time. And our unit was in Bastogne, but we moved out to let them come in. We went back to Neufchâteau, and after Neufchâteau, we went back into Bastogne. We had our group back in there, and when General Patton come up, he brought his Third Army, and I met him on the intersection there, the main intersection where I was working. And when I met him, he said, "Where's the 101st Airborne Headquarters?" And I told him. And he said, and then I started to tell him how to get there. He said, "Don't tell me, tell my driver." General Patton was. But anyway, he did the right thing because I should have known better than to try to tell him anything. I mean, and eventually, he got the word anyway, his driver did anyway. But from there, actually, before that, I had actually went and stayed for 4 months in a home in Goody. It was a little town near the front, right there, that there was a ration depot, and I was taking care of traffic, moving in and out of that. And I lived with a family for 4 months there. The hotel didn't have enough room for me because it was occupied by some of the other groups that was there. And my sergeant and jeep driver, they got a place to stay. Well, I had to wind up going out and finding a place, which was with the Lalamone family. That was a mother, father, well, a grandmother and grandfather of a gentleman that I've got here now with me. And we spent about a month down there with them before we came up here. And he's sitting right up there, him and his wife both.
Nice.
He's the son of one of the young ladies that was in the home that I stayed with.
That's incredible.
And he's been with me he even actually came to my home in Louisville, Louisville, Kentucky. Incidentally, I'm from Louisville, Kentucky.
Where?
Home of the Kentucky Derby. I'll let you know that.
Thank you very much. Reid Clanton was with the 84th Infantry, and on D-Day, you believe that you were assigned to the 29th Infantry. So what was that
Well,
experience?
I don't remember for sure, but I thought we went in with the 29th. Well, no, I guess we did go in for 29th on D-Day.
What are your recollections of that day?
That day, I remember crawling over the side of a big ship on a net and we got hit on those little higgin boats
Yeah.
and went to the beach.
And what was going on at that point on
There
the
was
beach?
a lot of shooting going on, a bunch of guys already shot. I guess I must have been around the third wave or something, time we got there or something. And there was a 98 up on to the right, and there was Germans dug in bunkers on the beach there with tall grass on. And then after that, well, we went on through, and I guess it was the 9th Army that we were on with, and we were fighting on that front. And when the Battle of the Bulge started, and the Germans speared way down, they called for our division to come to Marseille and make a stand there, and if it took all the men, and that's what we did. And so when the first encounter, we encountered the Germans, they hadn't quite got that far yet, but they were driving some of our vehicles, and they were dressed in some of the boys' soldiers' clothes. So how they got those, and I guess during the fight from Bastogne down to Marseille, I guess somewhere or another they must have got all. But anyway, we made a stand there, and we stopped them. And then we started pushing them back to Bastogne. And just as they were leaving, you know, that we were pushing them pretty hard, I guess. But so when we got a short distance of town, Bastogne, my officers I was with had gone back to the guns, where the guns were, or to the office, or what they called it. And so I was there by myself for a short time. So I just happened to look up, and there was 5 Tiger tanks to my left. They were trying to escape, I think, because they had already pushed too far back, you know. And so I called for some artillery, and I could see my shells bouncing off of the Tiger tanks. You couldn't hurt those guys. They were tough. And my understanding was the only way you could hurt them was knock the track off of them. Right. So we went on into Bastogne, and I guess that was kind of the worst part of it. But then we went back. I think we did this. I'm not positive. My memory's not really very sharp, but
Neither is mine.
yeah. But then we started headed for Berlin, and we broke through the Siegfried line, and we went across a bunch of rivers. I know 2 of them was Rhine was one of them, and another one was Gore or something like that, I think. But we went across there, and of course this was during that big push, you know, and I run into 5 Germans accidentally. That his outfit had already left them. They were in the brush in a ditch and everything. And I was walking along there, and I heard something like that. I turned around and looked, and a little white flag gave me that. I hit the deck. It scared the heck out of me. I knew something. I figured they was going to start shooting. But they started falling out of the little dugout they were in. And
They wanted to surrender.
they wanted to surrender, yeah. And so I lined them up there, and I had a buddy that was on the other side of that brush, and I hollered at him, told him to come on and help.
What's it like to come back to Normandy after all this time? And do you think back to June 6, 1944, when you were here visiting
Oh
Normandy?
man, it was very emotional. I've got Parkinson's.
That's okay, I'm just moving the mic
Yeah,
up a little
okay,
bit, I
yeah.
understand, yeah.
It was very emotional.
Coming back.
Be back, yeah, when I just made that little rise and looked out there and saw the channel, it hit me, yeah.
Brings you back to that time. The memories are very
Yeah,
vivid.
right, it's sort of, yes, definitely. And so anyway, we, fought on down through those, cross those rivers. The Rhine was a tough cross. The Germans blew up the bridges and we had to paddle a pedal boat across Rhine River. So we were headed for Berlin, and so we got up to the Elbe River, not too far from Berlin, and we got orders to hold it up. That they had to let Stalin take Berlin. That really teed us off. We were wanting to go to Berlin. So, anyway, that's about it, I guess.
That's amazing. You lived some amazing times. There's no question about that.
Yes, very much.
Thank you. We're going to open it up. If anyone has a question for anybody on the panel, we'd love to.
Yeah, that's it's so interesting because obviously you don't want to overwhelm them, or you don't want to, shut them down, or let them open up as they would, what's comfortable. And I think with Shifty it was more about being in his world. I went to stay in his home with him and his wife, and met his family, and he would just met his family. So basically, he taught me to shoot his M1. And he would, he'd set me down and line it up, and I was a city boy then. He was from the mountains, and so so he had to really teach me well, and so it was kind of like he said that I ate too much. That was the problem. He would have adopted me otherwise. That's it. So anyway, but we did go wandering around the mountains, and I think that is what really was in terms of him opening up. It was kind of almost like he was showing me what was home. And he's saying, this is what, this is what I value. This is my home. And I think that in that way, he was telling me all the stuff that happened, and he would tell me lots of different things, all the things that he would talk about what happened, and a lot of it was to communicate something that I needed to know for the series, but really, I think the most important thing he was trying to tell me was why his home mattered, and why he was, what he loved, and that I think is what I carried. That's the thing that I think I kind of remember the most.
Just to follow on from your question, because we kind of know from what we're doing from this side, but the veterans they went through their experiences, and then of course it was very, very personal to them. But we're talking about the experience as it happened. So what we were all given as actors were these huge dossiers, like everybody, the people in production had done 2 years research, and there had been interviews, and we were basically put in uniform and told exactly who we were. So all we had to do was not get in the way of that, and then the moments, the emotional moments are yours as the audience to see. We can't indulge in it ourselves. So you'd agree, wouldn't you? The people who trained us knew exactly about our characters as well. There were huge files and everything. We were encouraged to, reach out to family members and try and find as much as we can about it. But you can't then play that as in that moment they were in at the time, which was high energy and high adrenaline and stuff, and the rest of it, that's for you to experience. Did I answer the question right? Is that good?
No, it was a great question. I think Peter was talking about Shifty, and there's a poignant moment at the end of Band of Brothers where Shifty looks at Dick Winters and says, "How am I going to go home and explain all this?" And I think that was for all the veterans, and they still live with that today. It's like, how do I go home to Virginia or explain all this to everybody at home who didn't go through it? And I think that to me stood out at the end of the series, because that represented almost every veteran who survived World War II. How am I going to go home and explain this to my family, to my friends, what I just went through, what I just saw, the concentration camp at Landsberg, the killing of other people. So, I mean, to me that summed up the whole series and World War II for any veteran. How do I go home and explain all this? Another question. Over there in the corner. Run, Eric, run. Run, Eric, run. They've forgotten, Eric. They forgot.
Tim, thank you so much. Just want to thank all of you for your service for the veterans, and then for everybody else for your contribution in preserving the memories, and Tim, especially you, Bubba, you just do so much to do that. My question is very simple and very quick. It's for Mr. Clanton. Mr. Clanton, you left out the best part of your story, and one of the best parts. What happened once you got to the Elbe River? What did you do?
Oh, I forgot that part again. I sort of forgot that part. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, we was waiting on the Russians to meet us there. And a lot of them was started coming, the Russians, the Germans was surrendering to us coming across the river, the Elbe River. They were coming in across there by the droves. They wanted to surrender to us, not the Russians. But we had a little slack time there, so we just stripped off all of our clothes, went swimming. And when we got out to take a photo of it, we put all our helmets to our pilots. I still have that picture on my desk.
A lot of privates, right?
Yeah.
Not so many corporals, but a lot of privates.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a good story.
I forgot to tell about the Battle of the Bulge, how cold it was. Actually,
How cold was it?
okay, it was 70 below zero. It was pretty cold. My feet got froze. My whole body was frozen tight. That's how cold it was.
Amazing. Anybody survived that on either
Yeah,
side.
I tell you what, when you had to stay in a foxhole and no fire,
Couldn't build a fire.
couldn't build no fire, for sure.
I bet you snuggled up with some of your foxhole mates, though, right?
Well, no, I didn't.
I thought there might have been, and never mind.
Yeah, no. I had a lieutenant that was with me, but he went, like I said, back to the guns, and when this all took place. So, I don't guess he ever made it back very soon anyway, for all that we started living again. Yeah.
If we could bring up that photo of you guys with the helmets. We don't have it, sorry.
But I have it, and I can
Jeff
make sure
does
you get.
have that photo, so if we could somehow bring it up to the screen here, I think it would be great to see. So we'd have to change the rating of tonight's Q&A to probably an R.
You're gonna bring that picture up?
Oh, I'll find it.
We'll find it. We're going to send it to everybody here who's on the email list. So,
Thank you very much.
yeah, thank you. We have another question, I think, over in the corner up there. Way up there. Eric, run again. Run.
Divided into two groups, and one group would take chairs in a semicircle, and they would do what they had to do as far as reading is concerned. Then in the second group, went into the reading circle, and I had a problem home because I like good-looking little girls. And, well, when the second group got in there, I left my chair in the classroom and went over there and kissed a little girl by the name of Betty Coffee. And Ann Cadigan, the teacher, punished me. He made me take my chair over and sit in a corner looking at the wall. And that turned me and taught me a lesson that I carry the rest of my life. But don't mess with good-looking little girls. Eventually, I grew up, worked hard, went into the service, learned in boot camp how to correct charts, how to take star size with a instrument, how to clap a course, a ship, and then just to have a copy of one of the charts I worked on with the
And at this point, I have mastered it to a degree. I'm not fluent in French, however, je parle un petit peu. Okay. But I actually lived in Belgium, and I also, on those 4 months with Christian Gabrielle's mother, who was a schoolgirl at that time, she taught me a whole lot of words in French that I probably wouldn't have known otherwise. But I do have a pretty good memory, so I can keep up with it fairly well. A lot of technical terms I may not know, but anyway, it's I think it's worthwhile to know as a military policeman dealing with the French as well as the military to learn a language of whatever nation you're in. To me, it's just a basic thing I think we should all do, you know, and it's much better to do that than it is to not do it. Makes the job a whole lot easier because you have to deal with both. So with that, I wound up at one time in Germany, and I was a clerk and interpreter in Germany. So that kind of went pretty good because we had a daytime interpreter that could interpret anything that we couldn't quite get in from English to German. We could depend on him to kind of help us out. So it worked out well. So as the French go, I mean, I'm part French anyway. I didn't learn anything at home in French, but I did learn a lot here in France. My buddy told me that we should try a phrase a day when we saw two children talking to one another. He said, let's try a phrase a day and see how we can do. We practiced on one another until we got it pretty good. So that was one good reason to do it. But the other reason was, like I say, working and dealing with the people. We needed to know a little bit about French, how to direct them right, left, or whatever. So that made our job a whole lot easier. Okay? Thank you for listening.
What the second part of his question was, what was the feeling you had when you finally returned home to the United States to know you were done with World War II?
Well, actually, I never really, when I come home, I used to go to reunions, military police reunions with my organization that we had. But the thing is, once I started going to them, they had similar things to the Battle of the Bulge, and I was a veteran of the Battle of the Bulge, actually a life member in it. So I wound up just as these airborne people talk about what they did, we do a lot of talking about what we did in Bastogne. So, but actually, when I come home, all I did really was to work and raise a family. I raised 7 children, a wife and 7 children. So, and we had a lot of neighbor kids too running the house in and out. So they were all on the crew as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to give the final question tonight to Kyle Chandler. And the question is, as an avid buff, history buff, interested in World War II, what was it like for you to finally be able to take part in a series about something you were so interested in? It was a different type of series that somebody. Every time I drop this, someone does a shot somewhere. So that's the joke in the family. So somewhere someone's doing a shot at Calvados. But for you, having this lifelong interest in World War II, you finally got to play a character that was involved in World War II. I mean, what was that like for you? You got to be around B-24 planes. You got to be around, that whole situation. So it must have been, you don't want to say it was a thrill, because nobody wants to say war is a thrill, but it must have been interesting for you as an avid historian of World War II to finally be able to play a character that was from that time period.
It actually, it certainly was, and you're right. The reality of being part of real items that were there, whether it was the German planes, the American planes. The first time we heard those B-25s fly in, I actually got emotional. I can't explain why I did, but there was something about it, the engine, the roar, the vibration, everything about it. But I'll transfer that a little bit and going as far as the reality. So growing up and reading and watching all about World War II since I was pretty young, it was my your world was my imagination. I went there quite a bit as a child, as far as World War II, that period. Bringing that and coming here and being able to put reality, as I had the honor to walk with Mr. Clanton and his beautiful wife, down to that beach after 78 years. It also gave me a reality of seeing exactly what it was. There's those few pictures you see with those blurred visions on the beach, but you just can't. But knowing a little bit of how that beach was defended, and these two, seeing all of it, and then it clicking and going, my God, that was powerful. And I had the absolute honor again to be there with a man who walked from the surf that I stepped in barefoot the prior day and came up that quarter mile with every bit of that beach covered with gunfire, enemy fire. It was absolutely amazing. So that reality sinking in to all that I've read about this and much else of World War II as well. It was stunning. It was amazing. And again, that goes back to why younger people should know. You should visit and see.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. We're in for a great treat right now. Winning